All right, next we have good old Mark Brockhurst. He's hitting the classic 5K row time trial.
Yeah, let's take a shot too, just for shits and giggles towards the end as to how much or what his time was, or sorry, his overall time.
Right now, if I was on the floor with Mark, I would have told Mark, this is a time trial. This isn't map 10. That's what I would have. He's very deliberate.
Yeah.
Maybe he thinks this is like an
maybe
instructional
he's in really
video.
good maybe he's in really good condition.
That's true. Maybe
Just so smooth, because that always happens with good rowers.
Yeah.
Too, right? You're looking at it, it's like, oh, that looks so easy, and then you look at the monitor, and it's 136.
Yeah. I just
like,
watched.
There's no way that's 136.
I just watched a guy. I forget his name. I follow him on YouTube, and he's just an obscene rower that just sets a shit ton of world records.
Oh,
and
yeah.
this guy went. He went 2K.
We DM'd back and forth.
Yes, I remember. Yes.
Yeah,
he wrote
because
a 2K.
he has the world record.
Yeah.
10-minute assault bike.
Yeah.
Score.
That was the guy that
and
sent you
60-minute assault bike score. Because I wanted to know his body weight, and he was at 200. I think he was 230 pounds, 6'4", 6'5", something like that. But which helps explain a tiny bit of it.
But he was holding like a 112 on the rower.
Yeah.
And before I saw the screen, I was like, he's holding a 140.
Yeah.
Like, he's nowhere close.
Yeah.
And then I saw that, and I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
So maybe Mark's doing that. Sorry, Mark.
That's right.
If you're just crushing and you're at a 132.
Yeah.
But I doubt that you are.
Yeah, he's efficient. He just changed up his
he changed that damper.
There.
Yep. So the 5K row, what are we looking at here? What are we testing?
Yeah, well, if you're technically capable, and because it's a longer distance, it's a beautiful piece of machinery for the test. Mm-hmm. It is. It's a pattern that, like we kind of joke about it, but it has some bending and squatting and postural endurance and upper body pulling inside of it. So it's a nice rhythmical pattern that can be paced out. Mm-hmm. If people were going to do it as a test, I'd highly suggest doing a whole bunch of volume of rowing and a whole bunch of volume of aerobic work. I'm being very generalized on that first, but that's the only real way you're going to get some indication of if it's an effective test. Yep. You can also know if it's ineffective if you decide to do the test and you don't even know if you have the volume built up, and within a couple of K in, you're just in mud, and power's dropping, and it's so hurtful for the next 10, 15 minutes, which just sucks, right? But that just shows that it's probably not the best time for you to do the test, because what it's determining is just the fact that you don't have enough volume built in.
Yep.
So if you want to do the test, make sure you have enough technical practice and you've put a bunch of volume in order to do it. It's just a beautiful test of a classic, 5K, which we know also in the fitness zeitgeist, the 5K on the road for running is a classic, test. And to do it on the rower has always been in place too with fitness testing for a long period of time. So it adds variables of, we can compare absolute scores and you can compare it to running and, all those things. So, man, I can go on and on in the 5K. It's such a beautiful test.
Yeah, the thing that...
Aerobic, it's a sustainable test, right?
The thing that pops out to me is that no matter how good you are at this movement, this skill of rowing, this test hurts either way. Like you're on the border
there's a
of
form
that.
of pain to it.
Yeah, you're on the border of that like aerobic threshold,
Yes.
right? Like, and you're trying to, like you said, not find yourself in mud, so you don't want to like go over that threshold, but you want to flirt with it all the way through the 16, 18, 25 minutes, however long this test takes you. Yeah,
great point. I have some observation or thoughts on why people are capable of maintaining that like flirt with disaster the whole, like a long period of time. Is that in running you can overpace, but you'll quickly diminish into plodding, and with this, because the contractions you can see is like 1, 2, I'm saying you can always like just consistently flirt with that muscle endurance threshold. That's the thing, right? And even if you figure out like you're getting hot, you don't get there so quick that you're like, how did I get here? A run. You kind of slowly creep up that just burning and whatnot. And I remember some instances of it where I've done that for 10K. Like I've been 1K in and been like, I have to fight now for the rest of this, right? Which was still quote unquote sustainable in my best score for it, but That's for the 5Ks, it's the exact same way for most people. So yeah, great point.
Yeah, and you have the ability to look at, you can see Mark, his eyes are glued to that screen the entire time, right?
Yeah.
So you have that feedback. You're like, you know,
Yeah,
how many strokes per minute am I going? What is my average pace per 500 meters? You know, you have a lot of things that you can look at and a lot of variables that you can flirt with, where it's like, okay, what if I decrease my strokes per minute, but I pull or I squat a little bit harder out of that catch, right? Like, how does that affect the picture? How does that affect my breathing and the way that I'm feeling? So you have an opportunity to explore with a test like a 5K and attack it 15 different ways over the 18, 20, 22 minutes, however long it takes you.
Great point. Yeah, that you don't see with running or some other things, right?
Yeah.
Or like I experienced a lot being on the water this summer, and that's something that you can't get into trouble with as easily, but you certainly feel the effects of it when you don't know what you're doing.
But yeah,
this is beautiful to be able to see that right away. You know, you can adjust as needed. The downside of that, though, too, is that you can't just regulate based upon perception.
Yeah.
Not sure if you've experienced that before, where it's like, you know, I'll just give you a sense of it is, you know, you can always do 148 for a 5K, and you've known that for a long period of time, right? And you flip the thing up and you just start on a 5K test. You can't see it, and someone walks by and goes, "Ooh, 142, good for you." What goes on in your head, right?
I'm going too fast.
Exactly, that's what immediately goes on. So that's the
also
also downside of being stuck in the metrics.
Yeah.
Is that you sometimes can't loosen up to auto-regulate based upon the day.
And we used to mess around with that a lot as well, as we do blind tests where we would do things like that, where it's like, hey, I'll let you know when you're there. We're going to flip this screen down and we're just going to go. Or like what we did that Sunday here, where we're like, hey, let's
power output.
let's generate some freaking power on this thing. And we put the towel over the assault bike screen, and we just went off of sound, and we're like, good, you're getting stronger, maybe let's stop, because now that thing isn't roaring how it was two sets ago. So I think there's some benefits there as well. Technique, and the role that technique plays on this thing. I don't think that there's one, and this is just my opinion, I don't know if you agree, James, but I don't think that there's one way to row. I think it depends on the person, their limitations, and where they can settle in. I think there's things that we could help people on, where it's like, you know, you're not getting a lot of leg drive in because you have no knee flexion occurring. You're just hinging back and forth. But overall, I think a lot of people, when they see others row, they always pick apart, like, well, if you were to do this, and you were to do this, and you were to do this. His
heels weren't down right there. He, didn't pull as quickly out of the catch position, because I could label all those things that the internet rowing quarterbacks would say right now based upon that for Mark. And they are somewhat right. It's just that for whom, like you said, for whom and for what in the context of it. There are some simple aspects, though, that you do want to have with row technique, and they're fairly obvious. That's the way I like to put it. But and when you want to color it more and get a little bit more specific, I think there are timing and sequencing skills
and breathing
that I would find.
And breathing as well.
Yeah, that all goes into that rhythm. You know, that I think there's some rhythm skills in there that are important to pick out for people. Because some people may, for example, just out of curiosity and low skill in the rower, come back quick to this, so then now you're explaining it in a way like, well, if you're in the water and you do this really quickly, you don't move forward, but if you do go slower and you move forward faster, so they could, oh yeah, I never thought about that. So they start thinking about the power they could distribute this way, as opposed to slowing down the recovery to create as much power going this way again. Anyways, I would agree with you that there's a lot of people believe there's a certain one way to do it, but humans don't fit into that. Most humans don't fit into that.
What do you think the biggest misconception, like rule, is on the rower, if one comes to mind for you? Where it's like, you got to do this, but you're like, that's a huge misconception.
I think just for the people that I talk to and hang with, they think stroke rate is the panacea.
Got it.
Yeah, and I just think there's a lot more to it. I think in particular competitive circles, or you want to be a world champion on the erg, there's a lot of room in there. But I think people developing a really nice rhythm, that works well for them. Some people can get into 40 strokes per minute, and you look at them and like, oh man, that stroke rate is not going to last. And then 20 minutes later, they're still doing it. So everyone can be individualized, feel themselves out. We've known the classic, like, well, they were classified as the sandbagging CrossFitter, right? That would do the big, powerful pull. And then, but that's a method of strategy to try to get the best result in the end, right? So some people can do that for 5K and get 18 minutes, you know? And you're thinking, well, is that exactly what we're looking for? That's exactly what we're looking for, is who gets there the fastest time, you know? So there's multiple different ways to do that. I think, funny enough, we just saw Georgia ask him to pick it up a tiny bit. And I don't know if he purposely did, or even just through the conversation, but he did pick it up a tiny bit.
Yeah, one that sticks out to me is just overemphasizing the pull.
His stroke rate is gone up,
rower.
I just saw that.
It does.
Yeah. So Georgia, I think, did say something.
Yeah,
he's into the low 150s right now at that rate right there.
Yeah, I think a big one is overemphasizing the pull. I think a lot of coaches pay too much attention to that instead of really focusing on, you know, where most of the power potential is in this movement and the skill, and it's in our lower body, it's in our legs. So
for sure,
you know, I think
great coaching cue.
Yeah, I think the classic thing that people have always said was rowing is 60% legs and 40% arms, or 40% back, and I'd be like, no, it's actually 90% legs and 10% back.
I would agree with you. It's almost like, well, it's similar to clean or pulling off the ground. Like the arms are just attached, and they're a receiving element of the drive. Right. They're just there to kind of keep it going. And I've been experimenting with a much longer rows, and more recently, and I have come to a better understanding of that concept of pacing with the lower body for as long as possible. And just based upon having that in place. And if you look observationally, if you look at really good rowers, they have leg trunks or blood that can get there and get out very efficiently, but they're not these big, robust, powerful, big bicep individuals. So it's something to think about for the power. I would agree with you. Cool. And I would say he does a pretty darn good job of you know, technique for it. You can tell if you go back a couple of minutes ago, he lost we're 12 minutes in. He lost, or let me guess here. So it was around the halfway point. You could tell his focus changed. His focus and stroke changed. Can you see his fit? Well, yeah, he looks comfortable.
Yeah.
Right, and then something around the 10, 12 minute mark.
I think it's after Georgia said, "Hey, let's pick this up a little bit."
Yeah, his pace jumped, and then he changed things. Yeah.
Yeah, now he looks more intentional on that rower right now.
Yeah, that's a great word.
So maybe he just had like this incremental pacing strategy going
Possible.
in. When he's like, hey, I'm starting at 155 and I'm going to end this bad boy at 135.
Maybe he knew this was an energy system training lead mag test. And he's like, listen, I'm just going to start slow. If I got something left, which it looks like it right now, he's like, I'm going to put it in, right? So we're at the last couple of seconds. You can see he's got a little bit of energy there. Yep, and his face is showing his capability of finishing it. Yep. And based upon what our guess is, he came around 20 minutes on the nose. Yep. Which that means that, for sure, he was at a 1:59, 2 minute. Yeah. And then Georgia came over and said something.
And then he made it
so
up.
then he tried to average 150-ish towards the end.
Oh, here we go. 144 or 1944. Well, let's go back to the split.
I just wanted to go to the end. We're trying to go back to see the split, folks.
Sorry, guys.
Right there.
I needed to pause there.
Nice.
All right.
What did I said to something. Look at that.
Oh man. Ooh. Yeah. So his first 1K was 204.6, and then he did take an incremental approach.
Let's not pick on Mark though for
202.
Because that's the classic pace strategy of someone who hasn't done something long, cyclical for a while. Yep. That's classic pace strategy. Is you're like, well, in my day, this is what comes up. Is like, I remember 140, 149 being on there, you know, and that's what comes up. And he was just mature enough to go, you know what, it's not going to happen. Yeah. So he's going to start off with a slower pace strategy and then build up and see if he's got something left. So I'm going to make an assumption that's what, because he finished with a 340 final K.
Yeah. At 149.9, so a fairly substantial increase in pace over every 1K. So
yep.
finished at 1944.5.
Yep, and interestingly,
strokes per minute
23 to 24 the whole time.
Yep.
The last ones are just reflective of his last like sprint.
Yep.
On his 1K.
So thanks, Mark, thanks for doing this for education.
Yeah.
We appreciate it, Mark.
But, and last point on it, if I may, is that this is an interesting comparison to a similar time domain than what we saw Amanda do, right? But a completely different test.
Yep.
That's the coolest aspect of, understanding that there's more inside of 20 minutes than just 20 minutes, right? There's lots of things inside that make it different. So
I would do the 18-minute AMRAP over the 5K.
And I would do the 5K, bro.